Hello, and thanks for joining us on Encore. I'm Mariam Saab in Paris, coming up on today's music show. Over 5 decades after their first album, the Rolling Stones have come full circle with a return to their blues roots. Touching on fatherhood and social justice, R&B crooner John Legend draws from the darkness and light to deliver his most personal album to date. And Francis Lung is stepping out of the shadows of the mysterious Manchester pop quartet WU LYF and into the spotlight with a new solo venture. And joining us for all that and more is our music critic, Mark Thompson. Thanks for being on the show, Mark.
Anytime.
Now let's get the ball rolling with the Rolling Stones. More than 20 albums deep into their catalogue, the rockers are rolling out the Chicago blues of the 50s and 60s. Their first album in over a decade is a rip-roaring tribute to the blues they once bonded over. Let's have a look at the title track. This is Blue and Lonesome. Now, if we strip the Rolling Stones back to their origins, their blueprint is the blues.
Very much so. This is their roots. As you say, this is what they bonded over. This is why they became a band in the first place. Let's remember that they came around in the 70s at the same time as Led Zeppelin and Cream, and there was a really big British blues boom at that time. I mean, if you're being harsh, you could say that they're doing a covers album finally because they don't really have much more to say for themselves. But that would be doing them a disservice, because one thing they've always done is try and teach people about the music that they grew up on. They used to take out B.B. King, Son House, Howlin' Wolf on tour with them when they were just starting out, in America especially. And they wanted to really teach their audience. And now they have a whole new generation of people to influence while they still can. They're in their 70s, remember. And there are actually a few musicians on here I'm not that familiar with, including Lightning Slim, Little Johnny Taylor, Willie Dixon. These are people I've never really given that much time to. So they've really shone a spotlight on these artists and are teaching a whole new generation. Although Mick Jagger's voice and his harmonica playing are as good as anything they have ever been on any Rolling Stones album, so he's still got it.
Good to see them back to form, and Willie Dixon was on their debut album as well.
Well, there you go, it all comes full circle.
Now, from rock and roll legends to one of the reigning kings of R&B, blending social justice with songs about family life, Darkness and Light has been hailed as John Legend's manifesto. His latest clip, Love Me Now, is spreading the feel-good vibes around the world. Take a look.
I don't know who's gonna kiss you when I'm gone, so I'm gonna love you now, like it's all I have. I know it'll kill me when it's over. I don't wanna think about it, I want you to love me now. I don't know who's gonna kiss you when I'm gone, so I'm gonna love you now, like it's all.
That's John Legend, up close and personal like we've never seen him before. Breaking out of the mould on this one, isn't he?
That single is a bit more the John Legend that we know. It's the crooning love song, but this is a more socially aware John Legend that he's allowed us to see before. He has been this man away from the studio. If anyone who watches on Instagram or sees him on Twitter knows that he's a very socially and politically aware man. But we can see from the opening lines in the opening track, he says, "They say sing what you know, but I've sung what they want. Some folks do what they're told, but baby, this time I won't." It's clear that he's standing out and saying, look, yeah, I've done what the record industry has asked me to do for a little while, but I'm 37, 38 now. I'm my own man. I can tell you what I want. And that's why we have Darkness and Light, the two sides of this record. We have him being the family man and the loving father, as we now know, but also this socially and politically aware side as well.
Now, the last time we heard from John Legend was his Oscar-winning song Glory that he wrote for the Selma soundtrack alongside Common. Can we expect more of the same on this album?
I do think writing and recording that song has given him the confidence to come out and be this socially and politically aware artist that we're now seeing before us. In particular, he's someone who started performing in prisons, and he's always spoken out about the US prison system, in particular the mass overcrowding in them. And so I think this is something we're going to see him addressing more in the future.
Now, on to another artist who doesn't hold his tongue when it comes to racial politics. Some people know Donald Glover from his work on the US comedy show Community and 30 Rocks as well. Others may know him from his new hit show Atlanta, but for most people, he's best known under his rap moniker Childish Gambino.
Yeah, he's one of these guys who just keeps looking to embarrass us all, because whatever he turns his hand to, he seems to be successful at. He's also a stand-up comedian, and he's also an electronic DJ in his spare time as well. Everything he touches seems to turn to gold. His hit series Atlanta, which he stars in, he produces, he writes, it's all about him being this burgeoning rapper in Atlanta, Georgia, where he actually grew up. And it is semi-autobiographical. And now he's releasing his third studio album, and he's always been a bit of a hipster hip-hop artist when it's come to his records. But this is completely different. Let's take a listen to Redbone. How cool is that?
I can really get into that groove.
I mean,
nice.
it's very subtle, but you may notice a subtle tribute to Prince in there. It sounds like it's just been ripped straight from one of the Prince vaults. It's absolutely brilliant. But what's excellent about this record is, as I say, he's gone from being this hipster hip-hop artist where he's always been a comedian, a bit of a turn of phrase, a bit of humour in there. But this is really interesting stuff. This is grown-up stuff. And we have this song, but we also have a touch of gospel, a touch of rock. He's just really showing us that he can do absolutely anything that he can do.
Evolution for
And
Childish Gambino.
Yeah, I think this record's going to open him up to a lot more, a whole new audience, really. People who are going to take him for more than just a hip-hop artist.
Now let's move on to another multi-talented artist, Francis Lung. He dropped onto our radar as the reclusive bassist for WU LYF, which was one of the most secretive rock groups of the past decade. But now he's stepping out from behind the mic and breaking his silence with a new creative venture.
Yes, so about 5 years ago, WU LYF really burst onto the scene, and everyone was really excited by them. And they released this one record called Go Tell Fire to the Mountain, and it was huge. But they refused to do any interviews, either prior to the record, during the record, whilst they were on tour. And they really amassed this huge following, because everyone was really interested. It's like, who are they? What's going on? But as soon as this record could come out and everyone had got into them, they decided to disband. And so everyone was left waiting.
That's a bit of a tease.
Yeah, so what's going on? What's going on? So Francis Lung is now back, and he's doing a solo career. He's the former bassist. Let's have a listen to what he said he's learned from that time and about his new record.
Never let you go, don't be forever, so give me what you can, give me another.
He used to be part of one of the most mysterious bands of this century. WU LYF from Manchester burnt out faster than they arrived on the scene and were notorious for not giving interviews. Now flying solo, former WU LYF bassist Francis Lung says his relationship with the press is different.
It's not the plan, but I don't want.
At the time, it made sense to say nothing. It felt like we were saying more by just resisting and choosing to be anonymous. But now, with the nature of the kind of project that I'm doing and that everyone else is doing now that used to be in WU LYF, I mean, people want to know more about us now, and I don't see why you should obstruct that in any way.
He's certainly using personal stories for his music. Romance is a big influence, and also family.
Maybe there was one side that was maybe more stuff that you could get from your father's side, so that's Fea's son. Maybe the mother's son is like at the other side of the personality, so it's something, don't know, a bit more fun.
We can be heroes. Just
Francis Lung says his sound is softer than WU LYF, citing British rock legend David Bowie as having a big impact. He covered Heroes after the star's death in January.
David Bowie means freedom to me. It's so inspiring that that you're only like defined by your own limitations. He wasn't so bothered about being like an original, and in that way he was more original.
Originality and independence are important for this young artist. Francis created his own label, Songs Records, to release his own music, giving him full control over his career.
I'd do it again, 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 again. I'd do it again, 'cause I'm a selfish man.
Cracking the enigma, that is Francis Lung. That report was by Nicola Hebden. And now, last but certainly not least, we're moving on to Jean-Michel Jarre, the French electro giant. He's back with the third installment in his Oxygen series.
Yeah, so 40 years ago, he released the pioneering record Oxygen, the electro. It's basically the North Star for all electro DJs. Reference point now. So 40 years ago we had Oxygen, 20 years ago we had Oxygen 2, and now we have Oxygen 3. It's the last in the final series, and the way he approached this record was really to go back to that initial one and say, okay, if I'm starting out now, how do I make this record? How do I change it? What's new about it? What's more interesting about it? And it's a really brave move for an artist. It's not something we always see people doing, is going back and saying, okay, I think I'm a different artist to what I was back then. I think technology is different. I think my process is different. How can I change something that was already pioneering? So I think it's a really brave move, but it's very much Jean-Michel Jarre at his best.
Jean-Michel Jarre, master of reinvention there. You can catch him live in Paris at the Accor Hotel Arena on December 12th. That's all we have time for, I'm afraid. Thank you so much for joining us, Mark Thompson. We're going to leave you with Jean-Michel Jarre's latest clip, Oxygen 17. Remember our website. Connect with us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 right after this.
Reporters, presented by Mark Owen.
Coffee, sugar, flour, products that are now hard to find in Venezuela. Famine is looming over many families and poverty is crippling the middle classes. And the country's economic crisis is compounded further by political turmoil. Whilst pro-government militants praise President Maduro, the opposition is pushing for a referendum to remove him. Over 3 years after Hugo Chávez's death, Venezuela is close to breaking point.
Reporters on France 24 and France24.com.